Hello friends, and welcome, new and returning players, to Heroes of the Storm. Who would have thought this StarCraft 2 mod, released in 2015, would still be going in
current year?
For those who don't know, the game has been in maintenance mode since Hogger was released in 2020, and has been surviving on the occasional patch and bug fix since then. But you know, Blizzard gamers are nothing if not a captive audience, and HotS has enjoyed a consistent and dedicated player base running on habits and copium. If you found this video while looking to give the game a try, welcome. We loyal no-lifers accept and thank you for your blood sacrifice. But really you deserve to know what you're getting into? So, allow me to extend an olive branch, a helping hand, some friendly advice that will get you started on your journey into the Nexus. Heroes of the Storm is a multiplayer online battle arena, or MOBA, a 5v5 hero brawler spawned from the golden age of real-time strategy games. What separates HotS from similar titles, such as Dota or League, are the varied maps and objectives, a streamlining of game systems, and an emphasis on teamfighting. A lot of mechanical relics have been done away with in favor of faster, action-filled games. You don't need to know what items combo with what abilities on which champions, and you don't have to last-hit minions, mostly. The game is also a lot snappier than its competitors. Instead of being locked into a rigid 8-point directional system, heroes will slide and clip to move around the map as efficiently as possible. The games are a lot shorter too. Instead of wasting hours on 1 or 2 matches, you can waste hours on several. Fantastic. But what's the point? How do you play? How do you win? It's simple, really. All you need to do is destroy the opposing team's core. The challenge is in coming up with a plan considering the strengths of each hero on your team, playing those heroes to the fullest, and adapting to how the match is actually turning out. Grabbing for small advantages here and there that eventually allow your team to overpower the other and end the game. Stop! Before you go in blind, there's some settings that can make your life easier. Click this little gear down here, then go into Options. In the Mouse and Keyboard tab, over here on the right, above the targeting text blurb, there's an option to enable camera follow. I would recommend having this on for new players. This option locks your camera to your hero, allowing you to focus entirely on controlling how you move instead of both moving while wrestling with the camera. As you gain more experience, it's better to have an unlocked camera so you can look around freely, but one thing at a time. You can always swap between a locked and unlocked camera during a match, as a toggle with the L key or temporarily by holding the spacebar. In this same menu, I would also recommend increasing the cursor size to max, and even enabling cursor guides. There's no shame here, the screen can get noisy. Why not make it easier for yourself? You don't want to die wasting time searching for your cursor. These options make it easy to know exactly where you're pointing. Next, click the Gameplay tab. Under User Interface, enable smart commands through Minimap and Attack Move Target Point. The former is subjective. I know people who prefer clicking on the minimap to cover long distances. Personally, I'd rather not accidentally tell my hero to move in the wrong direction while I'm chasing someone or running for my life. Attack Move Target Point simply makes it easier to attack what you want to. A default A move command will have your hero move towards the selected point and engage the first attackable target they see. Whereas, with this option enabled, your hero will move to attack the target that was closest to where the command was issued. So you just have to click near whatever you want to hit instead of clicking it directly. Another thing you should look at before you jump in are the quick cast settings. These are found in the hotkeys menu. There are 3 ways abilities are cast in Heroes of the Storm. The default setting that primes the ability, which is then cast with a confirm command using the left mouse button. The quick cast on setting, which fires off the spell immediately in the direction of the mouse cursor relative to your hero. And on release, which is a mix of the two. Instead of using the ability immediately, pressing the hotkey will prime it in the same way as the default setting and will activate it when the hotkey is released. This lets you see the spell's hitbox while still reducing the amount of actions needed to actually use your spells. It's the best of both worlds. You can fiddle with these settings on a per hero, per ability basis. Try different things, see what you like. And lastly, go into the social tab and disable team chat. I know, it's a team game and communication is important, but this setting exists for a reason. There is no all chat in Heroes of the Storm. You can only type to the people on your team, so all of the toxicity flows in one direction. Since you're new, you don't know what you don't know. And the people who've been here have been here for years and may not be the friendliest or most tactful when it comes to noticing and correcting silly mistakes. Just have it off for a little bit. You could always turn it back on later. Whether you have chat on or off, you can always communicate with pings. Pings are temporary flags every player can place on a map and are meant as a means to quickly convey information to your team. There are 5 flavors of pings in Heroes of the Storm, 4 of which are on a radial menu which you bring up by holding the left Alt key. The Danger Ping to signal a potential ambush, incoming gank, or an area to avoid. The Defend Ping tells your team you wish to hold the line here. On my way, sends teammates your thoughts and prayers, and assist me, which is always good for a laugh. The retreat ping is not on the radial menu and is bound to the V key. While they're not perfect, pings can be incredibly helpful so long as you use them honestly and take them at face value. Okay, now we're all set up. Which game mode do we play? Well, forget about ranked, you can't get in if you're new anyways, and unranked is dead. The 3 remaining game modes each have their benefits. ARAM is fantastic for learning how to play a hero against other people, but you don't know what you're gonna get. Versus AI is great for learning maps, mechanics, and hero controls. And Quick Match is a good place to study psychology. We're gonna focus on Quick Match today. Before you get into a match, you have to pick your hero. There are 90 heroes in the game, as of the making of this video, divided into 6 official categories. Tanks, bruisers, melee assassins, ranged assassins, healers, and supports. Tanks are the bulkiest heroes in the game. They are the unofficial leaders of the team as they bear the most responsibility. But with this duty comes power. Tanks have access to an abundance of disruptive and aggressive abilities. Stuns, roots, slows, displacements. These heroes are masters of battle, controlling the flow of fights, picking targets for their team, and interfering with hostile plays like dives and ganks. Every team benefits from having a tank. A shame no one wants to play one. Beside tanks are bruisers, heavy-hitting frontline fighters. What they lack in lockdown, they make up for in flexibility. With decent damage, wave clear, and self-sustain, these heroes are typically taken in the solo lane as their overall individual power allows them to bully other classes in one-on-one fights. Out of all heroes, bruisers require the most generalized game knowledge to maximize their potential. Melee assassins are the shrimpiest class of frontline hero, but they are by no means weak. They are the hardest heroes to play in the game, as they do not have the bulkiness of tanks nor the sustain of bruisers to help them survive. These fragile heroes leverage their high damage and mobility to get in, get a pick, and get out. Melee assassins hover around fights, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Ranged assassins are cowards. Yeah, I said it. The most popular class in the game, these heroes typically have low health and must rely on their positioning and friends to avoid being isolated and focused. The job of the ranged damage dealer is to deal damage at range. Wow, I know it sounds silly, but consistent harassment can soften up the other team, creating openings for tanks to engage or ending a fight before it even starts. Healers are the backbone of the team. Vulnerable, with low damage, healers are loaded with utility abilities and sustain, giving their team both the hit points and confidence needed to win fights. Healing in heroes is about controlling the flow of damage, anticipating who will be focused, and preventing their untimely demise. And finally, supports. This might as well be the Abathur Medivh category. Spend enough time in Quick Match and you'll understand what I mean. These are not quite healers and oddballs, characters that don't fit cleanly into any particular category. While these heroes excel in organized teams, playing them on your own, you'll quickly discover their drawbacks in uncoordinated environments. So you've picked your hero, readied up, and now you're on the loading screen. What can you expect at the beginning of the game? Well, there's this tradition, an unwritten rule, a gentleman's agreement that has been in the game for as long as I can remember. Because early kills are valuable, and many quests involve hitting or slaying heroes, what normally happens at the beginning of each match is both teams will charge down mid lane, or bottom lane on 2-lane maps, for a round of honorable combat. This doesn't happen every time, but it's reliable enough that it can be subverted with cheeky plays like one team rushing the bottom wall on Blackheart's Bay, or an individual player on a strong pushing hero sniping a tower far away from the teamfight. That first mid-lane brawl sets the tone of the match, giving insight on how each team might play. What happens next depends on where you are. There are 14 battlegrounds in Heroes of the Storm, most of which are the typical 3-lane map you expect to see in MOBAs. Unlike League or Dota, roles aren't divvied up per lane like top, mid, bot, and jungles. Here it's more like the solo lane and the rest of the map. Teams will typically split in one of 2 ways on 3-lane maps, a 1-3-1 split and a 1-0-4 split, with the solo player rotating to soak the 2 closer lanes, and either a 3-2 split or a 4-1 split on 2-lane maps. The actual positions and numbers don't matter, and while there is a designated solo lane that is decided by valuable mercenary camps, a positional advantage, or distance, in practice, the solo lane is wherever the 1v1 is taking place. There's a lot more movement and rotating in Heroes of the Storm, both to counter enemy pushes and capitalize on openings, but we'll get into that later. On the map you'll find buildings, minions, mercenary camps, watchtowers, objectives, and other heroes. Buildings or structures are static defenses, preventing you from attacking the opposing team's core and winning the game. No matter which map you're playing on, you will run into the same buildings every time. There are 6 destroyable structures in the game, 7 if you count healing fountains. The first line of defense in a lane are the walls. These are comprised of 3 separate structures: the gate, which allows friendly units to pass through, the towers that defend the gate, and the walls that are walls. These block both friendly and hostile pathing. As these buildings are the most outward defensive line, they are the easiest to attack. An early tower snipe is a subtle and effective way of cracking your opponent's armor. The towers will attack the first enemy that comes into range with the following targeting priority. Monsters and vehicles are first. These are objective spawns, like the Dragon Knight of Dragonshire or the Cavalry on Alterac Pass. Then, the closest summon, Mercenary or Minion, with heroes at the bottom of the list. Towers will attack whatever their focus is until it dies, runs away, becomes untargetable, or a higher priority enters its range. This means the safest and most effective way to push a wall is when you're surrounded by non-hero targets. Some heroes can create their own, but most likely you'll be using minions to soak tower shots while you get damage on the buildings. The gates and wall sections are little more than pathing blockers with a health bar and give no experience when destroyed. After the walls, the next thing in your way will be the forts. These are larger, sturdier structures that deal more damage than towers and have true sight. True sight reveals any stealth hero in an area around the fort. Unlike towers, forts will prioritize heroes, but only if they shoot first. So long as the invading player does no damage to a defending player, the fort will have the same attack priority as the towers. But the moment the fort senses any player-on-player action, it will immediately refocus its damage onto the offending hero. No fighting! Any source of player damage redirects the fort's attention, even if it comes from a summoned unit. You really don't want to take too many of these cannonballs. They do more than hurt. They make other hurts hurt more. A quick primer on armor. One of the ways damage can be mitigated in Heroes of the Storm is through armor. Armor is gained through talents and hero skills, and there are 3 types. Spell armor, for spells and abilities, physical armor, or block, for auto attacks, and armor, which covers everything. We'll only worry about armor for now. Armor reduces the amount of damage taken to all damage types as a percent based on the amount of armor a hero has. For example, 10 points of armor will mitigate 10% of damage taken. This also works in reverse. Attacks from forts will reduce a hero's armor by 10. The fort's debuff stacks twice, so until the target disengages or dies, they can take up to 20% additional damage from all sources. A clever defender can intentionally take player damage to refocus the fort's aggression onto an enemy hero, which can force that hero back, giving the defender space to clear whatever mess is pushing onto the fort. Taking forts is a must. The longer these are alive, the harder it is to push into the other side of the map. Forts offer islands of safety with vision and high damage, as well as healing with healing wells. Healing wells, healing fountains, taps, sippy cups, whatever you call them, when used, these invulnerable structures offer 40% of a player's health bar and 30% of their mana over 20 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. Games last about 20 minutes, so that's 10 taps per game if used on cooldown. That's a lot of healing. While wells cannot be targeted, they are destroyed when the accompanying fort or keep is destroyed. So the longer your structures stay up, the more time your team can spend further out on the battlefield. All the more reason to protect your own buildings while trying to break your foes. After the forts, deeper in the lanes, there's another set of walls, and finally, the last line of defense, the keeps. Keeps are like forts, just bigger and meaner. They're often close enough together that their firing ranges can or nearly overlap, limiting the space pushing teams have. And no matter what, you must destroy at least one before even thinking about attacking the core. We're not talking about Towers of Doom here. If all keeps are up, the core is invulnerable, and keeps are usually only taken by strong, targeted pushes, with objectives, large minion waves, or while the opposing team is down. Sniping a keep isn't really a thing in HotS, and when it happens, it's usually done with a specific team composition that allows for it. Don't go into a game expecting to solo kill a keep, you'll just end up feeding. But if you can do it reliably, teach me. Destroying forts and keeps comes with multiple benefits. You get a nice upfront chunk of experience, it increases your passive experience as well, and it steals space from the enemy team by removing healing opportunities and increasing the pressure applied by your minion waves. These little guys are super important. Minions are more than simple cannon fodder. They're the primary way of gathering experience, and they make you realize why being in the army would suck. They soak damage from towers and other minions, letting you push into enemy buildings. They provide vision, dismount careless players, and can block skill shots. They also provide a little bit of healing as well. Every 30 seconds, a minion wave spawns at your core and travels down its respective lane until something stops them. Each wave is comprised of 7 minions with 3 minion types. The melee minions that do little damage but are tanky, the ranged minions that are squishy but do damage, and the leader, wizard, or globe minion. No matter what hero you play, you will be interacting with minions at some point. See these? These are experience globes. They're dropped by the melee and ranged minions. XP globes last for 45 seconds, but that doesn't mean you should let them sit. These purple orbs are only worth the full amount of points in the first 6 seconds of their existence, after which they'll only grant 1/4 of their initial value. Needless to say, you want to pick up as many of these as quickly as possible. Experience globes will be drawn to the closest visible hero entity, so you don't have to be on top of them to pick them up. Also, if you can spawn clones of yourself, like Nova, or have a pet like Rexar's bear Misha, you can collect them from even further away. Minions will not drop experience on the ground if they are last hit by a player or their summons. Instead, the XP will be deposited directly into the murdering team's experience pool. Now this guy in particular is incredibly important, and I'm gonna explain why. While the little wizard does not drop experience when slain, what he does provide allows heroes more uptime on the battlefield, which leads to more experience gathered overall. Regeneration globes are juicy balls of life that replenish 9% of a hero's health and 7% of a hero's mana over 5 seconds. That's great on its own, but it gets better. This healing is applied to every allied player in range of the globe gathering hero. The more friends are around, the more valuable these globes are. Don't worry about any invisible friends, collecting healing globes won't reveal their positions. A lot of heroes need to pick these up for quests, too. Keep in mind of who is close by when you go for the globes. Sharing is caring. Regen globes persist on the ground for 6 seconds and are team exclusive for the first half of their lives. Those last 3 seconds though, it's first come, first serve. Everyone is waiting for these, everyone wants these. Use this fact to your advantage. There is one more minion type that must be mentioned. Catapults are long-range, high-area damage-dealing minions that spawn every 3rd wave in the lane of a destroyed fort and every wave in the lane of a razed keep. The presence of catapults in a lane pushes friendly waves deeper into enemy territory, providing more vision and threatening further structures. Unlike other minions, catapults do not drop globes and only grant 1 experience when destroyed. You can only ignore catapults for so long. They will always outrange and deal double damage to buildings. If left alone, they can clear towers, keeps, or even end the game. Catapults do not spawn on Towers of Doom or Alterac Pass. Towers is its own beast, but on Alterac they are replaced by Reavers that make up for their lack of siege damage by being incredibly bulky for a minion, and are worth 10 times the experience of a catapult. Now, catapults aren't the only way to increase your lane's pushing potential. Across all maps, you'll find camps filled with mercenaries that can be convinced to fight for you. This is done by beating them up in their homes and then standing on the couch until it turns blue. Many of these merc camps are map dependent, but they can be grouped into 4 general categories: siege camps, bruiser camps, bonus or reward camps, and boss camps. I started to go into detail on all of these camps, but halfway through realized what a tangent it was, and so I'll make a separate video on mercenary camps later. For now, all you need to know is, siege camps push lanes with damage, can in general be safely taken by an individual player, and are the fastest respawning camps in the game. Bruiser camps have less damage potential than siege camps, but make up for it by having way more hit points and can support heroes in some way. Bonus or reward camps offer items or vision, and boss camps have one massive unit that requires many players to both capture and defend against. Mercenaries are best taken before an objective spawns, to split the enemy team's focus and force them to concede the objective to protect their structures, take a hasty, unplanned, poorly positioned, and underprepared for teamfight, or, more likely, an uncoordinated play, split up the team, placing them at a numbers disadvantage while someone defends against the camp. Mercenary camps and their timings are incredibly important for keeping the enemy team off balance, because you need every advantage you can get in a teamfight. These are what HotS is all about. The entire game is designed around brawling as much as possible, for better or worse. Unlike other MOBAs, where one hero can outlevel and carry fights through sheer weight of their numbers, experience in Heroes of the Storm is shared amongst every player on a team. So long as both teams are relatively equal in level, fights will be determined by positioning, game knowledge, and individual player skill. It also means the easiest way to get a statistical advantage is to outnumber your opponents. Baiting and ganking win teamfights before they happen. It is far more difficult to win a fight when down even a single player. And while it might suck giving up an objective, camp, or fort, staying alive and soaking experience can be much more worth it in the long run. Even if you fall behind, you'll have at least 1 or 2 chances to swing the match back in your favor. Because of how experience and leveling works in Heroes of the Storm, I'm gonna tell you a secret. I know at the beginning of the video, I said HotS was a MOBA. I lied to you. In truth, Heroes of the Storm is a racing game. Because levels are team-wide, gathering more experience points than the other team puts yours at an incredible advantage. There are 5 ways to collect experience in a match. Minions are the safest, easiest, and most reliable way of gathering experience. They're not very threatening to players, and they're constantly walking towards you. Minion experience is worth a hell of a lot more in the early stages of a game compared to later on. So much so that even if you get absolutely obliterated and constantly ganked in the first 5 minutes of a match, so long as you're eating every minion that comes your way, you'll still end up being around the same level as the other team. Next are hero kills, picks, ganks, whatever you want to call them. Other players are full of juicy XP points. Opposite to minions, hero experience increases in value as the game goes on. If you fall behind and the game is nearly over, all you need to do is catch a couple of careless players to make a comeback. A lot of people will call for soaking in a panic when behind at later stages of a match. They're not totally off base, this can help alleviate some pressure, but what's happening is they're falling back on their comfortable, learned habits. It makes them feel safe. Because of the decrease in value from minions, oftentimes soaking at this point is too little too late, and getting lucky in a fight or picking off isolated heroes will have a much bigger impact on your situation. Fighting? From behind? But earlier in the video you said don't do that. Sure did, and earlier in the video I was talking about earlier in the match, whereas now I'm talking about the final minutes of a game. If you find yourself in a situation like this, you just have to accept that you've either made many mistakes or you've been outplayed, and finding the enemy team when they're split up or hoping they make a mistake in a fight can put you back on equal footing quickly. If the enemy team can just show up and end you, you might as well try make a play while you can. It is an act of desperation, but what's the worst that could happen? What, are you gonna lose harder? Next, we have mercenary camps. These grant experience when captured. Reducing a mercenary's hit points to 0 does nothing but take them out of the fight. All of the experience in the camp goes to whichever team was better at standing on the circle. I heard that experience value for camps is increased if your team is behind on levels, but I couldn't find anything to confirm that, so if someone knows if that's a real thing, please let me know in the comments. Subscribe. The majority of structures also give experience when destroyed, but what most people don't know is how buildings are also tied to this number. Passive experience. How the hell do you get more of that? Why do both teams have different numbers? Well, how passive experience works is both teams will get 23 points per second, starting about a minute into the match. How much passive XP you gain depends on how many forts and keeps you've razed to the ground. Every enemy fort or keep destroyed will increase this passive bonus by 20%. Not a lot in the short term, but it adds up, especially if you get an early fort and then take a fight that lasts a long time. Having more passive experience coming in for your team and drawing out fights can edge out a tiny advantage, and you need every little bit of leverage you can get in this game. Knowing when power spikes are coming can help your team decide when it's a good time to take a fight. There's no gold and no cash up in this game, and you don't need to level up your abilities. Instead, heroes in Heroes of the Storm have talents. Talents are modifiers chosen at designated levels that can completely change how an ability works, how a hero plays, or even grant new abilities entirely. There are 7 total talent tiers. You reach them at level 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, and 20. You get a choice of, on average, 3 talents when you reach one of these levels. Level 10 is special though. Here's where you get to pick your ultimate ability. Ultimates are powerful abilities with long cooldowns that can end team fights. In general, these are what you picked your hero for and what you use to combo with your team. Whichever team hits 10 first has an insane power advantage. If a fight is brewing and the other team hits 10, just back off, trust me. Better to eat an objective push and get your ultimates over being wiped and unable to defend said heavy push. It takes all hands on deck to defend against objectives. Objectives differ from map to map but follow the same principle. They are team fight forcing tiebreakers, whether that's dealing damage directly to buildings, increasing one team's pushing power, or reducing the other's defensive capabilities. Objectives create openings and affect decision making, as they can help snowball an advantage or come back from behind. The strength of an objective push can crack through even the toughest defenses. Before we wrap this up, here's some more general advice. Basic rules you can follow in every game to increase your chances of winning. Number 1. Soak the lanes. Do it. I know fighting is fun. I know the game is all about fighting, but don't you want to win those fights? Taking on someone bigger than you is silly, and if you want to get big, you need to maintain a healthy diet of minions. You can always rotate back to the brawl after soaking. Number 2. Don't die. Wow, thanks. So helpful. Wow. There's a lot baked into this piece of sassy pie. Let's take a second to scoop it out. What people mean when they say don't die is back up, don't take unnecessary risks, and watch the minimap. This can all be done by knowing where you can stand at a given moment without being suddenly murdered. This changes depending on team composition and player skill, but in general, whatever you do, if it's on your half of the map and you see or have recently seen about 3 opponents on the minimap, what you're doing is safe. If you cross that center line and you have no idea where the enemy team is, you're gonna die. The best thing you can do for yourself and your team is staying alive, and the best way to do that is by keeping an eye on the minimap. You don't need to be watching your body all the time. When you find a moment, glance down and take stock of who you see and where. It'll save you a lot of trouble. 3. When you die, make it count. Knowing when your life is worth less than what you get out of losing it is a valuable skill in this game. People don't often take risks unless there's an obvious, immediate gain. And there's no better way to make someone slip up than by shaking your booty in their face. Overextending and committing to a push on your own, knowing you're going to die, but forcing the enemy to split or rotate to stop you, while your team clears an objective or picks off whoever stayed behind, can shake things up enough to give your team a positional, numerical, or level advantage. People may not understand and get upset that you didn't come to the fight, but they can cry about it after winning the 4v3 on objective. Besides, we turned off chat anyways, hehe. Number 4. The opposite of number 3. Know when to potato together. Sometimes a bad play made as 5 is better than a perfect play made alone. I know, these are contradictory. What you have to understand is each situation in each game is different. You have to be adaptable to what's going on and aware of the needs of your team. Knowing what to do comes with a lot of experience, and with a lot of bruises. Number 5. Choose your potatoes wisely. If there's one thing that ruins multiplayer games, it's the other players. Running in and dying, refusing help, flaming their team. If only there was a way to avoid these people. Do I got news for you? While a lot of post-game communication is over bruised egos, you can also use it for making friends. Did your offlaner soak well and stay alive? Added. The tank made great plays and was rarely out of position? We're friends now. Your whole team gets styled on by one guy? Teach me. Almost immediately, you'll find that grouping with people you enjoy playing with and can learn from will increase the quality of your games. Yeah, you know, it's not perfect. There's growing pains. We all have bad days. What you want to find are people with high averages. And I'm not talking about win rates. I mean, win or lose, more often than not, you get along. Simple. It's that, or you can keep trying your luck with randoms. Let me know how that goes. And 5. Know when to stop. Oh boy, giving advice I don't take. I'm not gonna stop. It's the other players that are bad. I'm not gonna end the night on a loss, but every hero pick is wrong, every decision is wrong, everything gets worse, all I see are mistakes, and it's time to stop. Games are better, and you play better when you're fresh and untilted anyways. Well, that about covers the basics. Now you know who's who, what's what, and you have a little bit of knowledge on mechanics and mindset needed when playing Heroes of the Storm. Compared to other MOBAs, this game is far more accessible for new players, as the comeback mechanics are solid and you don't need libraries of knowledge on heroes or items to make good decisions and have an impact on your matches. Now I've been speaking long enough, and no matter how hard I try, I cannot give you real, useful, practical experience with only my words. Hours on the clock, time in the game. So go on, get out there, play some games, have some fun. If you're new, I hope you found this video helpful, and if you're old, get up and stretch. Alright, we're done here. Have yourselves a great day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the Nexus. Don't pick convection, it's a trap. Hello, and thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the channel a little bit, you know the drill, like, comment, and subscribe. I need all the help I can get poking the algorithm. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the channel a lot, consider becoming a channel member or signing up for the Patreon. You get early access to the content and there's no ads there. For as little as $1 a month, you can ensure that Foxy gets his beans. Of course, I'm just glad you like my stuff at all. If you are new to Heroes and want more tips or advice, like everyone else, I have a Discord, link in the description and all over the channel. Also, if you're looking to play Heroes and want an experience boost and up to 2 extra heroes, I'll drop my refer a friend link in the description as well. I don't know how long that lasts, and my friends list is almost full, so it's first come first serve. That's all I got for you today, see ya!